And what did you do with the results of lowering the standards to prove fraud? What did you do?
We put 79 people in prison and...
But Governor Walz, the fraud
prosecute.
continued to increase. It increased under your tenure. Do you acknowledge that?
Did the numbers increase? Yes. And I tell you, when you catch people and prosecute them, it shows up at the fraud increase.
We have it under sworn testimony in the Oversight Committee that your former chief of staff was notified directly by these various commissioners about the fraud in Minnesota.
That could be correct.
So are you saying that your chief of staff didn't notify you?
I'm saying I don't recall whether he did at that time or not, but we took action. So I'm assuming when we put our budgets together based on that, we put a package together for that legislative session.
Let's talk about budgets, Governor Walz. Feeding Our Future went from $307,000 in 2018 to $199 million in 2021. Are you aware of this increase in budgetary costs from Feeding Our Future?
Not specifically, but I know it increased during the pandemic.
The Housing Stabilization Services went from $27 million in 2021 to $105 million in 2024. Are you aware of this increase, Governor Walz?
Not specifically, but I know it increased.
Autism centers went from $24 million in 2019 to $342 million in 2024. Are you aware of that?
Not specifically again, but yes, we know the budget's increased.
Integrated community supports went from $4.6 million in 2021 to $170 million in 2024. Are you aware of that?
Again, not specifically on the numbers, but it's the budget.
Governor Walz, you have to submit a budget to your legislature every single year, like every governor has to do. If you're not aware of these increases, what was your office
Everyone
doing?
is balanced. My budget is about $72 billion. It includes 23 agencies.
Florida's budget's
$115
$115 billion, sir. But what were you doing if you're seeing program increases like this amid allegations of fraud in your state?
Action was being taken on these starting back in 2019. If it's CCAP.
Can you describe the action that was taken in 2019?
Sure. In 2019, I'll go to the first things that we did on child care assistance. We lowered the standards on proof of administrative fraud disqualification.
Whoa, you lowered the standards?
We lowered the standards for proof of administrative fraud. The standards where we had to prove it were so high it was impossible to try and do it. So we lowered what it took to show that fraud was happening.
And what did you do with the results of lowering the standards to prove fraud? What did you do?
We put 79 people in prison and...
But Governor Walz, the fraud
prosecute.
continued to increase. It increased under your tenure. Do you acknowledge that?
Did the numbers increase? Yes. And I tell you, when you catch people and prosecute them, it shows up at the fraud increase. I would tell you, Congressman, because you're not hearing about fraud doesn't mean it's not
I got 50
happening.
seconds, Governor, and I don't want to get into a fight with you, but let me move quickly to the Lieutenant Governor. Peggy Flanagan's your Lieutenant Governor, is that correct?
That is correct.
Does the Lieutenant Governor go on the ticket with you, or are they elected by themselves on a ballot in the state of Minnesota?
It's on a ticket.
It's on a ticket. Peggy Flanagan essentially works for you.
She has an independent office. She's a constitutional officer. She's on the ticket, but she is independent as a constitutional officer.
You could ask for her resignation at any time. Is that correct? That's typically how it works with lieutenant governors.
Yeah, but she's a constitutional officer. I don't believe that's happened in Minnesota.
Peggy Flanagan is, there are accusations that she was intimidating whistleblowers. There was a meeting on April 12th of 2024, where she went on stage and publicly denounced whistleblowers in the state of Minnesota, calling them losers in their mother's basements. Is this the type of treatment that your administration allows for whistleblowers in Minnesota?
I'm not familiar with that.
Are you aware of any intimidation of whistleblowers in the state of Minnesota? There are 30 whistleblowers who have given letters to this committee on the record saying that they have been subject to intimidation by your administration because they were trying to stop the fraud in Minnesota.
I encourage them to go to the OLA and the independent sources in Minnesota that are
the
open to do
OLA,
that.
you're the governor.
No, the OLA is the independent
But sir,
office of
you're the
legislative
governor.
audit.
Why don't you take responsibility for what's going on in your state?
We do take responsibility. None of those people, I'm telling you, I have no knowledge.
But you lost billions of dollars of American taxpayer money in the process, Governor Walz.
We prosecuted these people, Congressman. I think Florida has fraud.
I would argue that the prosecutions have largely come from the federal offices
That's
as
not
opposed
how
to
this
the state
works.
offices.
You know that we refer them
What do you
to
mean
them.
that's not how it works? That's
They're
exactly
partners.
how it works.
They're partners. They partner together. Our BCA.
Is the Attorney General allowed to investigate fraud and prosecute fraud in the state of Minnesota without the Department of Justice federally? Are you allowed to do that, Attorney General Ellison?
Yes, and we do prosecute Medicaid. Yes, and we do prosecute Medicaid fraud all the time. We've prosecuted over 300 people.
Apparently not enough, because Minnesota's rife with it.
Florida Congressman Byron Donalds just delivered an absolute masterclass in congressional oversight, completely cornering Minnesota Governor Tim Walz over one of the most staggering financial scandals in modern United States history. During a deeply contentious House Oversight Committee hearing, Donalds systematically dismantled the governor's defensive narrative regarding the explosive multi-billion-dollar fraud that infected Minnesota's taxpayer-funded social programs. The sheer scale of the financial mismanagement is breathtaking, and the way Donalds laid out the receipts left the hearing room in stunned silence. The confrontation centered on a devastating series of budget explosions under the Walz administration. Donalds didn't just throw out vague accusations. He brought exact, irrefutable numbers to the microphone. He pointed out that the infamous Feeding Our Future program skyrocketed from a mere $307,000 to an unbelievable $199 million. But it didn't stop there. Donalds methodically listed other programs that experienced highly suspicious, massive budget spikes. Housing stabilization services jumping from $27 million to $105 million. Autism centers surging from $24 million to $142 million. And integrated community supports exploding to $170 million. When pressed on whether he was aware of these massive, unprecedented increases in a budget he personally submits to his state legislature, Governor Walz repeatedly dodged, claiming he didn't know the specific numbers. But Donalds refused to let him off the hook, pressing harder on the administration's catastrophic failure to act. He introduced sworn testimony, revealing that the governor's own chief of staff was directly notified about the rampant fraud by state commissioners. The turning point of the exchange came when Donalds aggressively challenged Walz on what exactly his administration did when they realized they were hemorrhaging taxpayer money. Walz attempted to claim a victory by stating his administration lowered the standards to prove administrative fraud and put 79 people in prison. However, Donalds instantly flipped that defense upside down, forcing the governor to admit under oath that the sheer volume of fraud actually continued to increase under his tenure. The hearing took an even darker turn when Donalds targeted Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, bringing up explosive allegations of whistleblower intimidation. Donalds cited 30 whistleblowers who submitted letters to the committee, claiming they faced severe retaliation and public denunciation, including being called losers in their mother's basements simply for trying to stop the rampant theft of American taxpayer dollars. When Walz attempted to deflect responsibility to independent state auditors and federal prosecutors, Donalds delivered the knockout blow, asking why the governor of the state simply wouldn't take responsibility for his own administration. This explosive cross-examination perfectly highlights the findings of the newly released bombshell congressional report titled "The Cost of Doing Nothing." The exhaustive federal investigation revealed that state agencies possessed the full legal authority to freeze fraudulent payments, but voluntarily chose to keep the money flowing out of fear of litigation and bad press. Federal prosecutors now estimate that up to $9 billion may have been stolen or placed at serious risk across these programs. What this hearing exposed is a fundamental breakdown of executive leadership, proving that when political optics are prioritized over fiscal accountability, everyday American taxpayers are the ones left footing the bill. Byron Donalds successfully unmasked the administration's severe negligence, ensuring that this massive oversight failure remains firmly in the national spotlight.